we're obviously living in apocalyptic times. You know that, I know that. And if you are awake, you know that the world is now threatened with extinction. Extinction of the species, extinction of nature, extinction of humanity. You know that. But this is not a time for despair. This is a time for plunging at the deepest level into the deepest reaches of the self, and then living from that self with profound, flamboyant, ecstatic, grounded, sober joy. And the ones who guide us most profoundly to this sober, flamboyant, extravagant, ecstatic joy are the great mystic poets. Because when we meet them in the core of our being, when we meet their flaming, vibrant core with the flaming, vibrant core of our being, we are fed intravenously divine inspiration that gives us the courage and the passion and the strength and the stamina to go on going on, however chaotic and mad and violent and terrible and crazy the world becomes. I believe that...
Thank you.
What is going on? Is that better? Thank you. I believe that what we're living through is not the end of humanity, although it seems like it. I believe that it is a massive evolutionary crisis at its most unimaginably intense. And that it is a birthing of a new humanity, an embodied divine humanity. And those of us who know this in the depths of our heart and in ourselves must now prepare at the deepest imaginable level to go through what will be the greatest storm of human history, and it's coming soon. As many of you know, I spent 40 years diving into the furnace of Rumi and being part of the band of beings who brought Rumi back, part of the gang that collected around Coleman, our chief wild one. And I believe that this experience of being cooked in that furnace of divine passion by Rumi prepared me 5 years ago to begin to face Kabir. Because there are only two great universal mystical poets. There is Rumi and there is Kabir. And they're very, very different. Rumi was an aristocrat, lavish, gorgeous, aromatic, vibrant, musky, flinging himself out with tremendous passion and tremendous learning. Kabir was a peasant. He was a lower-class weaver who lived in poverty most of his life in Benares. And so he speaks with the direct, naked, fierce, no-nonsense passion of a peasant. Rumi leads with what you could call, if you love Islamic mysticism as I do, the Jamal side of God, the tender, the invitational, the seductive, the nourishing, the sweet-hearted side of God. Kabir leads with the Jalal side of God, the ferocious side of God, the side of God that howls again and again in his poems, "You idiots, wake up!" And there's another difference which is absolutely amazing and goes to the heart of why I have become so profoundly obsessed with Kabir. And that is that Kabir, this is what I will be exploring tomorrow with you, Kabir lived through the mutation that I believe is now taking place on the earth. He actually experienced transfiguration of the mind, of the heart, and of the body. And he speaks out of this ecstatic but very grounded realization in a way that no one else has ever spoken, with a clarity and a directness that makes it inescapably vivid to those who respond to it. And so I believe that the period of Rumi, it will never be over, but Rumi came back to us to prepare us to meet the teaching of Kabir. That has happened in my own life. I would never compare these two. It's like comparing Beethoven and Bach. But what I've come to find in Kabir is the naked truth speaking the most astounding possibility that we could any of us imagine, the possibility of being born through engoldenment into divine humanity, through this massive death process that's also a stupendous birthing of a new embodied divine humanity. So that's why I spent 5 crazy making years working on Kabir, and why I produced this book, because I wanted as many seekers on all paths to experience from Kabir what I have experienced. And so I want to begin by reading the introduction to the book, and then sharing with you 8 of his most momentous poems, and then ending with 5 of his enlightenment poems, when he speaks out of the living mystery of being turned to gold. Turned to gold in mind, heart, and luminous, illumined, transfigured body. This is what is being born on the earth at the moment. And this is our next stage. And to this we are now, with immense suffering and immense ecstasy, mutating. And I have to tell you that I know that this mutation is possible, because my teacher, Bede Griffiths, was living it at the end of his life. And through his grace, I have begun myself to experience the fringes of the fringes of the fringes of it. So it is happening. And let's go for it, my friends. Let's pour ourselves out and give ourselves to the great birth, and not let the agony and horror of what is inevitable in the collapsing of the structures of cold evil divert us from our most important task, which is to embody joy. Okay? So let's hear from the Everest of mystics. Which is not me, because I want to read you my introduction first, just to get you into the swim of what this book is about. And it has amazing photographs by a really extraordinary Canadian photographer who went to India for the first time and went directly to Benares and took photographs of Kabir's world that accompany the book. They're very astonishing. It's just won a major prize, actually. It won the Nautilus Prize for the art. So I'm very thrilled. But this is what I wrote in my introduction. I think this is the first time I've ever read from the book, so it's a marvelous moment for me. It has been a supreme honor of my life to have spent 5 years of it in the secret and unremitting presence of Kabir, What he has given me is beyond any of my words to express, because he has come into me and blessed and scourged and broken me and begun to awaken me. What work or thanks of mine could ever be enough for such a gift beyond price? For 5 years I have worked with my whole mind, heart and body on breathing and living his words, the fierce temperature of his truth. I worked with my smattering of Hindi, with many scholars in India and Europe, and from many translations in different languages, French, Italian, German. The ones that have taught and honed me the most are by two amazing women scholars, Charlotte Vaudeville and Linda Hess, and I salute them. All this strange, precise, ecstatic work took place on different continents in the gaps of the busiest and most exhausting period of my life. So I lived with Kabir in airports and hotels and planes and restaurants and trains, walking his streets of Benares, now Varanasi, speaking him out loud to the blazing stones of the Namib Desert, dreaming of his ecstatic singing one Christmas in Istanbul. I lost myself deliberately and with awe in Kabir, and the limitless life our love was unveiling in me. And this book, Turn Me to Gold, is the child of living with Kabir and trying to die into the splendor he sings, so it could again sing out its prophecy of divine embodiment. Kabir is far more than a poet. He is a universal initiatory field, as expansive as Rumi and as embodied, radical and ferocious as Jesus. He is for me the voice of the evolutionary truth and its piercing love. And we have never needed to hear him more or been more prepared by tragedy and longing to hear him. Turn Me to Gold is arranged as a mystical symphony in 4 movements. Kabir sang his poems in the noisy and filthy alleys of 15th century Benares. He knew God as the supreme musician whose sound always rang in his ears, and only a rich musical form, I knew, could ever begin to do justice to the different dancing facets of Kabir's genius and their endless interplay. May Turn Me to Gold be far more than a book to you, as it has been far more than a book to me. Let Kabir guide you, take his hand, let him lead you into the abyss of unknowing, where you will find yourself, despite yourself, being turned to gold. All awe and gratitude to Kabir, and to you, lovers of truth, who will now also find him. So, the beloved is in me, and the beloved is in you, as life is hidden in every seed. So rubble your pride, my friend, and look for him within you. When I sit at the heart of his world, 1,000,000 suns blaze with light, a burning blue sea spreads across the sky, life's turmoil falls quiet, all the stains of suffering wash away. Listen to the unstruck bells and drums. Love is here. Plunge into its rapture. Rains pour down without water. Rivers are streams of light. How could I ever express how blessed I feel to revel in such vast ecstasy in my own body? This is the music of soul and soul meeting, of the forgetting of all grief. This is the music that transcends all coming and going. Kabir believes in the direct path. He hated the costume party of the Hindus, and he hated the costume party of the Muslims. He hated anything that came between human beings and the naked, transcendent one that lived in all beings as their core and essence. And so he begins the poem by just telling us the truth absolutely straight. He says, the beloved is in me. I know this. I'm living as the beloved's beloved. But you can too, because the beloved is in you. And then he says, as life is hidden in every seed. And that introduces us to one of his major teachings, which is that unless you learn how to die into life, by giving up your head, by giving up your concepts, by giving up your dogmas, by plunging into the furnace of reality naked, bravely, unless you do that, you'll never, ever live at all. Because what you think of as life in the full self is not life. Life begins after death. The death of the false self. The death that explodes you stilly and silently and vibrantly into the naked life of reality. The beloved is in me, the beloved is in you. As life is hidden in every seed, so rubble your pride, my friend. Rubble your pride, because if you think you're living now, you're deluded. You're actually a concoction of trauma and convention and fantasy and magical thinking and terror. You're not alive. To be alive is to know you are deathless. And to be alive not only in your own body, but in the bodies of everything, and in every stone, and in every dancing flea, and in every quivering leaf, and in every leaping dolphin, and in the exploding supernovas, all at once, beyond any concept or description. That is life. And if you aren't able to see that you are dead now, and need to learn how to die into something so amazing, you will never go on the real journey. You'll never set about the real journey, which is about rubbling human vanity, rubbling pride in being somebody when you're actually nobody at all. And until you're nobody, you'll never be somebody. So rubble your pride, my friend, and look for the beloved within you. Don't look to the gurus, don't look to the priests, don't look to the dogmas, don't even look to the holy books. They can inspire you a little. Look within you, do the work of deep meditation, saying the name of God, yearning and burning and longing for God. Do that holy work, and grace will open to you the unimaginable beauty and splendor of who you and everyone and who the creation really is. And then he goes on. And he describes what it is like to be living as a conscious, embodied, divine human being, seeing with open eyes the glory of the light that is manifesting in a million crystallized light energetic forms. Because that is what happens when the light comes up. You know that everything that you are looking at, from the carpet to the supernova, is nothing but the crystallized light of the great, vibrant sun that is shining through all things. And that's why he says, when I sit in the heart of his world, a million suns blaze with light. A burning blue sea spreads across the sky. Life's turmoil falls quiet, and all the stains of suffering wash away. And then he comes back to our reality and shows that what we call our reality, embodied reality, is utterly shot through in every quark and neutrino by the blazing truth of the light. There is nothing here but the light. And that's what he makes absolutely clear in this astounding paragraph, quatrain. He says, listen to the unstruck bells and drums. And as many of you who are mystics know, as you wake up, you hear the sounds of the great musician, the shabd it's called. Some of them are very amusing sounds. They're like bees. Some of them are gongs. Some of them are like rushing winds. But there are bells and drums because the entire universe is created out of a magic of the marriage of sound and light. Combinations of the different colors that emanate from the white light. And they are combined with different sounds to produce different realms and worlds. This is known in all the great mystical traditions, and it's an experience I've had, and I'm sure some of you, or many of you, have had. It is an astounding revelation. Listen to the unstruck bells and drums, and then love is here. Plunge into its rapture. Don't wait for heaven. Don't wait to be totally awake, because love is here. It's right here. It's in this body. It's in our relationships. It's in our seeing with love the burning colors of the creation. It's in our petting of our animals. It's in the depth of what we are. It's here. It's all around us. It has created everything. It's living in everything, as everything. And our job, our invitation, our summons is to not just read about this, but to plunge into its rapture. So its rapture can take our minds over and make our minds servants of lucid joy. Make our hearts servants of tender ecstasy, and make our bodies temples in which that joy vibrates with golden intensity in every cell. Rivers are streams of light. And then that last amazing 2 verses, and listen again to them. And this is Kabir speaking from Divine Embodiment, where you and I are going the next mutation, the birth of the divine in the transfigured self. And he's, as everyone who has ever tasted even the fringes of this experience, it's so amazing that all you can do is cry out in ecstatic gratitude that something so unimaginably beautiful could be real. And that's what he does. How could I ever express how blessed I feel to revel in such vast ecstasy in my own body? You'll never hear a line like that from Rumi. Rumi is the greatest imaginable poet of transcendence. But what Kabir is the greatest imaginable poet of embodiment. And then he ends by saying, this is the music of soul and soul meeting. The soul in us meets the great soul, and when that marriage takes place, the body comes too. This is the music that transcends all coming and going. I'm going to read it to you again, because this is the poem of the next stage of our evolution, and I pray for all of us that in our lifetimes we will be able to say this poem knowing that every single word of it is true. The beloved is in me, and the beloved is in you, as life is hidden in every seed. So rubble your pride, my friend, and look for him within you. When I sit in the heart of his world, a million suns blaze with light, a burning blue sea spreads across the sky, life's turmoil falls quiet, all the stains of suffering wash away. How could I ever express how blessed I feel to revel in such vast ecstasy in my own body? Listen to the unstruck bells and drums. Love is here. Plunge into its rapture. Rains pour down without water. Rivers are streams of light. This is the music of soul and soul meeting. This is the music that transcends all coming and going. Who can describe God's form? Who was there who saw him? Neither Vedas nor Quran were there. Who can define God's caste? Who can tell God's secret? In the God state, there are no clusters of stars, no sun, no moon. No one is born there from a father's sperm. There is no world there, no land, no air. Who can even name that state? No one even exists in it to issue orders or frame laws. In that state, there's neither day nor night. So tell me, friends, what family does God belong to? What caste could be God's? You are that. is the teaching of all non-dualists, the message of the Upanishads, and on this rock is built the faith of all those who know. Supreme truth is its own proof. Don't all the ones who have been liberated acknowledge and proclaim this? Listen, friends, you'll never be free so long as you cling to caste or tradition. The highest cannot be described and cannot be seen, but it can be lived. Why give your life for anything less? The Lord Himself is a guest in your heart. Why are you still so desperately seeking Him? Offer your whole heart to Him before night darkens it. How many eons you've waited for this momentous chance. Go near now to His heart. Offer yourself selflessly. He'll give you an ocean of ecstasy and explain to you Himself love's mysteries and essence. Kabir says, how could I ever express how blessed I am to have won His unshakable love? Kabir often refers to God as Him and the Lord, but he also refers to God as it, and he also refers to God as that, and he also refers to God as having no name, and he also refers to God as Mother, because he knows that all the names are just gestures towards the unnameable mystery. So please accept Lord. It's a very glorious name for God. It's had a rough run, we know. But when Kabir is talking about God as Lord, he's talking about ultimate reverence for ultimate majesty. So he's saying the Lord Himself is a guest in your heart. And I love that line, because if you have a beloved guest in your home, don't you do absolutely everything you can to make that guest feel loved and cherished and nourished and respected and seen and honored? Don't you? Somebody you long to see who's graced you with 3 days of their presence, don't you pour out everything that you are to make them feel absolutely nobly welcome? Of course you do. That's what we do for the people we love and cherish most. But how would we live our lives if we really understood and understood that inside the core of us, the Creator of all the worlds is our guest? With what courtesy would we treat that guest? With what honor would we treat the home, our bodies, and our psyches, and our consciousness in which that guest lives? It would change everything if we really knew what Kabir is saying. And it does change everything when you begin to know. It changes everything about how you treat yourself, and it changes everything about how you treat every single living thing, because you know that the Lord is living in the core of every living thing. And he goes on and he says, why are you still so desperately seeking him? Don't go on seeking, my friends. Start finding. Start doing the work at such an intensity of concentration and commitment, such a depth of passion, that God will have absolutely no option but to reveal God to you. Start finding that everything that you're looking for outside is all living in the space of your naked heart consciousness. That's why you're on the earth. Not to go from workshop to workshop and religion to religion and fancy meditation to fancy meditation, but to choose something and dive and plunge and let grace reveal to you this supreme secret so that you can live before you die in the divine life. The Lord himself is a guest in your heart. Why are you still so desperately seeking him? And the price of finding the beloved is in this next line. Offer your whole heart to him. How many of us can truly say that we've offered our whole heart to the beloved? But that's the price of enlightenment. To offer all the deepest passions of your mind and heart and body up to the mystery in adoration. Absolutely, finally, and forever. Offer your whole heart to him before night darkens it. We have so little time on this earth, and perhaps less time on this earth in this apocalyptic madness that we're living through. So what the hell are you and I waiting for? When will we strip naked and jump into bed naked with the naked beloved? How many eons you've waited for this momentous chance? How many reincarnations have you been born, and how many times have you been queens and dustmen and madmen and murderers and monks that have broken their vows? How much more can you go on this endless hurdy-gurdy wheel of samsara before you finally realize that there is only one way through, and that is through abandon in total devotion to the one? How many eons you've waited for this momentous chance. Go near now to his heart. Offer yourself selflessly. He'll give you an ocean of ecstasy, and he'll explain to you himself love's mysteries and essence. You don't need a guru. You don't need anything but your abandoned self. And when God receives the gift of your abandoned self, God will explain to you in the terms of your own experience, your own temperament, your dreams, your meetings. Everything will be revealed to you in stages. That's been my experience, and it's the experience of all those who take the direct path with extreme passion. So take it. It will be so momentously revealing to you. There are teachers who can help, but even those greatest of teachers will tell you in the end that it's up to you. Are you prepared to burn wildly enough for the wildness of the beloved to be revealed to you? Kabir says, how could I ever express how blessed I am to have won his unshakable love? You have to sweat, and you have to bleed, and you have to long, and you have to fall on the floor, and you have to cry out at night, and you have to lose a lot, and you have to let your illusions be shredded, and you have to go through oceans of suffering. Everybody does. But if you can sustain a level of passionate devotion, grace will lead you to unimaginable bliss. And you will know what he knows, that the unshakable love of the beloved lives inside you to be there for you, whatever happens, now and forever and forever and forever. So now for some ferocious Kabir, because I've started with sweetness, but I wouldn't be doing him any justice if I didn't get out his knife, because it's a great knife. It's probably the greatest knife any mystic has ever wielded, and it's certainly a knife I love. There's a marvelous poem in which he says, "I am God's assassin." Wow. I am God's assassin, and I am waiting for you in the dark alley of abandoned love, for when at last you are brave enough to run onto my knife. That is astounding. And there is a whole part of Kabir that is God's assassin, God's chosen assassin, that has decided to tell the truth without any flattery or varnish, not to humiliate and torture us, but to shock us awake and make us plunge into real devotion and real service now. And for some reason, this poem always hides from me because it's so frightening. But it's also so beautiful. Rilke has this phrase in the beginning of the Divine Elegies, when he hears the angel speak for the first time. And he has this phrase, "Beauty is that terror that serenely disdains to destroy us." And that's Kabir's beauty. And that's the beauty of the terrible side of Kabir. It's the beauty of the majesty of the divine that annihilates illusion to birth reality in us. And this is Kabir. This, I've discovered, is true knowledge. Whenever Kabir begins a poem like that, you know you are in for it. That's one favorite way of beginning a poem. The other favorite way is, "Wake up, idiots." Kabir was not New Age, my darlings. He didn't tell everybody they were fabulous and already awake. He knew that the world wouldn't be the filthy, chaotic, violent, horrific mess if most people weren't absolutely addicted to illusion. And that broke his heart, and out of his savage heartbreak, he took up the knife of truth and brought it down out of tremendous mercy. This, I've discovered, is true knowledge. Those who scramble to get into a boat sink like a stone midstream. There goes the New Age, doesn't it? Those who scramble to get into a boat sink like a stone midstream. Just as all this idiotic, narcissistic, magical thinking that has polluted millions of minds is going to sink like a stone midstream when Kali just flames out with her dance, which she will soon. How much will manifestation matter then when the mountains are crumbling and the seas are boiling and the fish are dying and the million species do go extinct? Nothing will survive that experience except truth. And thank God, truth lives in us, but only if you burn away the lies. I mustn't get too Kabirized. This I've discovered is true knowledge. Those who scramble to get into a boat will sink like a stone midstream, while the shelterless and abandoned reach the other shore. Those who dare to take the hard, winding, thorny road get to town in the end. But those who stroll the easy highway get robbed or even killed soon after they set out. Everyone is wound in illusion's web, the so-called holy as much as the worldly. And those who run for safety under the comforting dais of form and ritual and dogma, well, life's hurricane lashes them. So, stay out in the open. You'll be left safe and dry. The ones love never savages live in boredom and pain. Those love devours like a cannibal live in bliss forever. The ones who lose their own eyes come to see the whole creation blazing in their own light, but those who hold on to their sight remain blind as bats in full noon. When I began to awaken to the truth, I saw how bizarre and crazy this world really is. That's the poem, babies. That's Janis Joplin mysticism. That's the real vodka. And it's such a beautiful poem. I hope you won't mind if I just plunge into it and open up some of its immensely testing but liberating truths. If you scramble to get into a boat and to define yourself and to define your path, you'll sink like a stone midstream even if you think you are swimming, because you will have limited yourself, and only the limitless can satisfy our fundamental hunger. If you have the courage to remain shelterless and abandoned, not to hide under any comforting name or identity, to be exposed naked to love and truth and mystery with your full being, you will reach awakening, real, radical, divine, embodied awakening. Because real, radical, divine, embodied awakening can only happen to those who have abandoned concept and dogma for total surrender to one they know they will never know, but they know is love. Those who dare to take the hard, winding, thorny road, not the weekend guarantee of super enlightenment or the 7-week comfort. I can't even find the words, I'm so speechless with rage at the whole nonsense of it. But the hard, winding, thorny road, and it is hard, and it is winding, and it is thorny because it has great suffering in it, it has great ordeal in it. The real path to truth is a path of dying into truth. And it has terrible hard patches, and it winds into strange, mysterious detours, and it's thorny because you bleed on it. But if you dare to accept that, and Kabir has this wonderful quatrain when he says, don't blame love for the agony of what it brings. Love is the king of all powers, and those who don't choose love are already dead. Those who stroll the easy highway, sex, drugs, rock and roll, Wall Street, the whole enchilada of samsara, those who want the easy rewards, they get robbed or even killed soon after they set out. And how many people have you known in your 20s who seem to have the world at their feet, to have everything, brilliance, beauty, intelligence, who by the age of 38 or 39 had already capitulated so much to the system that they were already dead? That's what he's describing. He's describing the death that comes from conforming to illusion. They may seem to be alive, sipping their Chardonnay in their mansions, plotting their bunkers run by robots because they don't want people, because people would actually eat the food and be unruly. But are they alive at all? I don't think so. And we're ruled by those people. So that's why it's such a strange situation. But then he goes very ferocious. He says, everyone's wound in illusion's web. If you think you're not in illusion's web, that's the biggest illusion you will ever have. You'll know when you're not because you'll be dead alive. But until that state is installed in you, you're still swirling around in a very refined cinema of your own concoction, and you have to become aware of that. Because if you're not, you will never be given, and you cannot be given, the absolute amazing truth of being transfigured. Everyone's wound in illusion's web, the so-called holy. My God, what a costume party holiness has been, right? How many gurus have we now in 2019 seen bite the dust, surrounded by used condoms and bank accounts in Switzerland? Everyone's wound in illusion's web, the so-called holy as much as the worldly. And those who run for safety under the comforting dais of form and ritual and dogma, life's hurricane lashes them. Kabir knew that we were headed for Kali Yuga, he says so. And he knew that in Kali Yuga there would be hurricane after hurricane until the ultimate hurricane. If you hide in form and ritual and dogma, you'll have your flimsy structures of beliefs torn down. But if you dive into the love that's here, and if you dive into the truth that's here, nothing can shake that. And that's the real meaning of being alive at a moment like this, is to do the work so intensely and so gratefully and so passionately that you come to know love and truth beyond religion as the essence of your own nature and the essence of reality itself. And then whatever happens will not swerve you from rejoicing. Stay out in the open. You'll be left safe and dry. I love those lines because they remind me of something that happened in my childhood. Whenever there was a monsoon in India, I was brought up in India, I spent the first 9 years of my life in India. I would escape from my parents, rush up to the roof, take all my clothes off, and dance in the rain. And lightning would be all around, hitting sometimes the edge of the roof. But I knew as a child that if I danced for joy out there on the top of the roof, naked in the rain, nothing would harm me. And so when these lines come to me, I see that naked boy jumping and singing and crying out with joy in the middle of that raging madness. And that has been a symbol of everything to how to live these times for me. Don't hide from the madness. Dance in the middle of the madness, exposed to the madness, but grounded in divine truth. And you be left safe. Doesn't mean you won't be destroyed, but you will be safe because it'll be alive and deathless. And then these terrifying but absolutely amazing lines, which I know you know are true. Those love never savages live in boredom and pain. Love, says Rumi, in one of his greatest poems, he says, love comes like a knife, not with some shy question, not with fears for its reputation. Love is a madwoman roaming the mountains, tearing off her clothes, drinking poison, and quietly choosing annihilation. That's love. That's burning, wild, holy, passionate love. And that savages you. It tears your life apart. It rubbles your concepts. It stamps on you to release you into its galvanic existence. And pity the ones who have never experienced it, because whatever they think love is condemns them to this narrow, boring strip of grey where they think they'll be safe, and they won't be safe because they'll live in illusion and die ignorant and have to do the whole damn thing again in some completely crazy world, perhaps this one or perhaps another. So those whom love never savages live in boredom and pain. And then he goes even further, because Kabir loves going even further, which is one reason why I, of course, although I'm such a restrained English person, love the ones love never savages live in boredom and pain. Those love devours like a cannibal, live in bliss forever. Love will eat you alive if you're damned lucky. It will eat your mind, it will eat your heart, it will eat your body, it will eat your marrow. And something amazing will happen then, because you'll become part of love's own radiant body, and your body will radiate the golden light of divine love. So, my friends, let's have two enlightenment poems. You've heard the rapture of the truth. You've heard the challenge to claim the truth inside us, and you've heard the price of the truth. Now listen to the glory of what the truth will bring those mad and sane enough to risk everything for the adventure. Love's hurricane has come. The whirlwind of knowledge has arrived. My thatched roof of delusion has been flung to the four directions. My hut of illusion, so carefully crafted, has come careening down. Its two posts of duality have crashed to the ground. Thunderbolts have collapsed all its eaves of greed. Its big stone jar of evil habits are smashed in a million pieces. With contemplation and clear devotion, the holy ones have rebuilt my roof. It is strong and unmoving now, and never leaks or drips. When lies and deceit ran out of my body's house, I realized the beloved in all his splendor. Rain came down in torrents. After the wild storm, torrents of divine love drenched me, body and soul. Then, O Kabir, the sun soared out, the sun of glory, the sun of realization, and darkness dissolved forever. That is the greatest enlightenment poem I think ever written. because of its intensity and violence and beauty and glory. And this is the state it led him to, which is the state I believe that we are all being led to. Seeker, the simple union is the best. Meaning, he says it again and again and again and again. He said, it's all here right now, but we are not here with it. We invent divine experiences and then we dissociate from here and we imagine that we are here to go off into the light when the light is actually created here and is appearing here in a million different shapes and is giving us the whole energy to connect with its million shapes through love. He says in one of his greatest poems, he says, my father is the absolute Godhead, and my mother is the embodied Godhead, and I am their divine child, dancing for them both on their burning dance floor. That's amazing. Because that's the reality of what you and I, at our greatest and deepest, are. Our father, our progenitor, is the eternal shattering light of absolute transcendence. And our mother is that embodied radiance, that embodied creation. Our body's the creation, everything that is visible. And they're inextricably interconnected, although they're not the same. They are two facets of the same mystery. And when you realize that your father is the eternal light and your mother is the entire cosmos, then your divine child is born in its playfulness and its exhilaration and its extravagance, its wild holy energy. And what that divine child does with his or her resources, service, life is dance, 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 dance for them both on their burning dance floor. Isn't that astounding? But when you bring mother and father together, the absolute transcendence and the utterly immanent presence of the divine in and as everything together, you live naturally, simply, normally in divine reality. And that's the truth beyond any religion. That's where we're going if we dare. That's what's trying to be birthed through the great agony of the great death. So let's birth it together. And this is the poem of that birth. The simple union's the best. Since the day when I met my beloved, there has been no end to the sport of our love. I don't shut my eyes. I don't close my ears. I don't mortify my body. I see with open eyes, and I smile, and I see his beauty everywhere. I say his name, and whatever I see, it reveals him. Whatever I do becomes his worship. Rising, setting, both are one to me. All contradictions have vanished. Wherever I go, I move around him. Everything I do is service to him. When I lie down, I lie prostrate at his feet. He is the only one I love. There is no other. And my tongue has abandoned all impure words and sings his splendors day and night. When I get up or sit down, I cannot forget him. The pulse of his music is always throbbing in my ears. Kabir says, my heart is ablaze. I unveil what is hidden in my soul, and I am drowned in that one great bliss that transcends all joy and all pain. So let me end with a prayer that is the second to last poem in these 108 poems. And this is for all of us, and for all of you who've been so kind as to come out tonight to listen to this astounding voice. The voice of truth, the voice of the next stage. You know, millions of years ago, a few mad fish got out of a toxic sea. They'd been to endless conferences in the sea, in which people in the sea said nothing is really going on, while there was hundreds and millions of deaths happening. And there were conferences which said, which if we sit and do the lotus position and imagine a clean sea, it would be cleaned immediately. But these few fish realized that all this was absolute radioactive bullshit, and that they had to get out of that toxic sea. And what did they do? They jumped into a totally unfamiliar dimension. They jumped onto land. And hundreds and thousands of those few fish died in that attempt. But some started to evolve new organs. And I don't know if you know this, but birds come from fish. So Kabir was that bird who jumped into the unfathomable mystery and was transfigured, just as we are jumping now in this unfathomable, chaotic, apocalyptic mystery, and must jump. But our great advantage, which he didn't have, is that we have him. We have these astounding poems that tell us that it's possible, it can happen. And so this prayer is for this great birth to happen in all of us. Let there be your love, Lord, burning softly in every cell of my dying and transfigured body. By your wild and merciful grace, Lord of truth, turn me to gold, so I can love in perfect fullness you who love in me. May we all come to be turned to gold and to radiate the calm and the passion and the joy and the sacred energy to all those in such agony and despair at this moment. It is the duty of the lovers to turn up resplendent when things get terrible. And it is a duty I am begging you in Kabir's name to assume with great honor and joy. Thank you. It's extraordinary to be in the presence of Kabir, isn't it? It's a very fierce beauty, isn't it? Best kind.
So we have a few minutes for questions. I don't know, Andrew, do you want to
Yes.
pass the mic, or do we?
Why
will
don't
we
you
be able to
pass
do it?
the mic?
Yes,
That would be sweet of you.
yes. That's what I was asking. Anybody have questions? questions.
Or just a reaction.
Comments.
I would love to hear from you how you heard that. How did it speak to you?
Naked dancing, welcome.
Naked dancing. Yes, dear.
My heart is so full, and my body wants to leap.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
When I was translating
Astonishing.
him, I was living in this log cabin, and I was in one of my periodic fits of bankruptcy. And I was living in this log cabin, and I would put on Tina Turner. Because there were some poems that were so electric that the only possible thing to do was to put on Simply the Best, which is my absolute favorite, or I Don't Want to Hurt No More. And I used to dance around my log cabin just because there's a joy that he gives that simply cannot be contained in words.
Yeah.
You really want to just explode with rapture that something so amazing could be true. And is true. Yeah. It is true.
It is true.
Yes.
It absolutely
I know, and
is.
here we are living in this world that believes this horseshit that the scientists are telling us that we're just dying, meaningless creatures in a meaningless universe. And then in the awful rubbish of the New Age, which says we all got to wander around with sweet smiles just pretending that nothing is going on, when actually it is embracing all of it and dancing for all of it that gives you life on a wholly new level of passion and energy. And with hundreds of thousands of people like us energized by this joy, who knows what couldn't be turned around? I'm not doing it for that. It could all go, but I want to live in total embodied joy before it goes and give everybody I can the encouragement to tear off their mental and spiritual clothes and just plunge into the furnace of love in action. Just go for it, do it, give it. Don't wait another moment, another day to start pouring your lives out in adoration of the divine in everyone and everything, and in real radical service. Oh, don't worry, I exhaust myself.
Yeah, be careful.
I'm curious how Kabir recorded his poetry. Was he just singing it, and he had disciples recording
Well,
it?
no, yes, Kabir didn't write, I don't
Yeah.
think. Kabir used to, Rumi didn't write, you know that.
Hafiz didn't either.
No, none of them wrote. And it's only people like myself who write.
Thank God.
On the lower echelon. But the real ones go into ecstasy. Rumi danced, hung onto a pillar and swung around, and the Heart Friends took it down. Kabir also sang and danced in the streets of Benares, and people would take down his words.
Were they his, like, quote-unquote disciples?
Yeah, well,
Or just...
he hated gurus.
Yeah.
There's a whole tradition of legends about Kabir which claimed that he was a guru, and of course when he died, they created a Kabir sect and made him the guru, like they did with Jesus, right? Who all his life was saying, don't worship me, the God is the only, etc., etc., you know the story. No, but they were his heart friends, his buddies.
Got it.
They adored him. And you know one of the funniest things that Kabir did? I have to tell you this joke, this is so funny. This is Kabir. Kabir's living in Benares, right? Supposedly the holiest city on earth, and certainly one of the most crazy and extraordinary, my favorite place on earth, and very holy actually in many mad ways. And Kabir would go to the Hindus and say, you're full of it. This is bullshit. You talk about God and you've got all this hatred of women and you kill animals and the rest of it, so up yours. Then he would go to the Muslims and say exactly the right same thing. You know, you scream from the minarets, but all of you just are fakes and hypocrites. But he took a lot of the greatness of Hindu mysticism and a lot of the greatness of Sufi mysticism and combined them in an extraordinary mixture. Well, when he was coming to die, the legend in India is that if you die in Benares, you will achieve liberation. As if it was that easy, huh? Just go and croak in Benares and Shiva will liberate you immediately. Yeah, right, baby. So Kabir had enough of all of this, and he said, I'm going to die in Magaha. And Magaha is 140 miles from Benares. And Magaha, traditionally, was a place that if you died in it, it would be the worst thing that could happen to you. You'd turn into a donkey. So when he was dying, he got his buddies to transport him to Magaha. He died in Magaha as his final protest against the whole superstitious shebang that has actually masked this naked, glorious relationship of beloved and beloved, right? And what's extraordinary, as he was dying, this is another marvelous joke. He was like Jesus. You know, one reason you can tell that Gospels aren't completely authentic is because there are no great jokes in them. And Jesus must have been extremely funny. The Gospels are amazing, but a few really fabulous jokes would be helpful. But Kabir's whole life was lived with this ironic, ferocious edge. And when he was dying, the Muslims, of course, started to claim him because they were dying to get Kabir to be one of them, right? And the Hindus started to claim him because then they could go on with the boys' club and with Kabir decorating their various fantasies, right, of power. And they were starting to really go at it. So Kabir sort of rolled his eyeballs, died, and one half of his body became red roses for the Sufis, and the other half became golden roses for the Hindus, so they didn't kill each other that day. And I've been to Magaha, and there's a beautiful, simple mosque, and there's a gorgeous, campy, kitschy. I love camp kitsch. Hindu kitsch is the best, apart from Mexican kitsch. And they love each other, the imam and the temple priest, because they love Kabir. Kabir's united. But that's the kind of guy he was. He's so beyond almost any of the other great mystics in his fearless radicalism. And it's part of his fearless radicalism, I think, not to write his poetry down. He sang them out, they were taken down. And I don't know if you know, but this is so astonishing. All Hindus all love Kabir, but it's mostly the poor people who really love him. When I go to Benares, it's the boatmen who sing him. It's the old woman selling cigarettes who sits me down and says, "Do you know Kabir? Kabir is my person. Kabir understands my life." And then she cries, and then she gives these amazing poems. But the Hindus do recognize Kabir as, of course, enlightened. And the Sufis adore Kabir in India. But not only the Hindus and the Sufis. When the first Sikh guru came to compose the Sikh scriptures, which are magnificent. If you've never read the Sikh scriptures, they're fantastically beautiful. Right. He put 300 poems of Kabir into the core of the core of the core of Sikhism. So he became the universal poet of mystical India. And he's really the universal mystical poet with Rumi of the world. Right. So if you don't get this book tonight, the karmic consequences of that are probably... You can't live without Kabir in a time like this. This is what I found, and I hope that you will find that too. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Can you believe he's jet lagged from coming from Africa? Can you imagine what he'd be like if he wasn't? I believe Andrew's...
I just came back from Namibia. Have you been? Anybody been to Namibia here? Oh my God, that's Kabir City. It's the most beautiful country I've ever seen in my life. I've been twice. This is the second time. Namibia is mostly blazing desert in which you meet the divine naked. It's foaming with wild animals and outrageous beauty and beautiful people. Struggling
where the
but
white
hopeful.
lions are?
No, the white lions are in Timbavati in South Africa. Namibia is just above South Africa, but it's a place of, for me, primordial revelation. So I took Kabir with me and I read him to my group in the middle of the Namibian desert, and many people lost their minds. And now, but it's definitely a place to visit before the fat lady sings. And she writes sooner than later, so go soon. Come with me, yes!
So if you want to see if Andrew still has any energy tomorrow, there's still a few spaces on our all-day seminar tomorrow with Andrew and with Mirabai Starr on mystic poetry.
And Sean Murphy.
And I will make a
And it's
cameo.
about radiant embodiment. We're
Yes.
really going to go into this vision of transfiguration, which the great evolutionary mystics have preserved for us. It's very important now to get with it, because that's the birthing that's trying to take place. And I'll offer my 2 cents on it, and we'll do some marvelous practices and dance up and down. Right.
Yes, and if anyone would like to have their book signed, Andrew's going to do a little book signing at this point, and there are more books at the table and back.
Absolutely.
And please linger and talk and hand Andrew books to sign. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.